Bye. Yeah. Here we go. We're actually live on Facebook. I'm get on my other monitor there. It's counting down. We're there. We're there. We're here. So again, basically, this episode, Destigmatizing Men's Mental Wellness, a conversation with Ryan Christensen. And in this episode with Ryan, we're gonna deal with the intersectionality of men's mental health and physical health. Quite often, as a man, I've had a problem discussing my physical health. But the mental has been a whole other challenge, and going public with it by means of my book and other places has also been a challenge, but it's led to a measure of healing and growth. But I know there's other men out there that I've met in my other part of my businesses that still struggle with that and talk about mental health and how to live within safe boundaries and how to love within those boundaries. Now, I'm going to shut up and let Ryan give you a brief bio of all he's about. You can still read the synopsis I put up there. But let's see him talk for a moment.
Well, my name is Ryan Christensen. I'm a hypnotist. I've been doing hypnosis for about 5 years now. I actually spent 23 years in the national security space before this. Marine Corps, Air National Guard, did intelligence work for 3 letter agencies up in DC, counterterrorism, counterproliferation, stuff like that for about 16 years. Turns out I have autism. I didn't get diagnosed with autism until I was almost 48 years old. And I grew up in Kansas in the 70s and 80s before internet was a thing. So nobody had any idea what the hell was wrong with me, right? The world works just fine for everybody else, but this thing does not fit, right? So it's been a struggle for me my entire life trying to figure stuff out. And, 2009, I had a major depressive episode. Everything just kind of came apart. Didn't realize what autistic masking was. So I was basically being different people in different places. I got some more help while I was going through my second divorce. And 2019 was really when I started locking in. It's like, I've got to figure this out. It's been 45 years, can't get what I need. It's like, I've got to figure this out. So for the next 3-4 years, I did pretty much everything you can. I tried everything. I did the therapy and the CBT, and I did the EMDR, and the breath work, and the energy work, and the Reiki, and the spiritual stuff, and the coaching, and the retreats, and the psychedelics, and the hypnosis. Basically everything but acupuncture, right? So I just went to war. It's like I didn't care what the hell it was going to take. I was going to do whatever was necessary to sort this thing out. And that's really kind of what helped me build the techniques and modalities that I have. I've figured out a lot of things along the way. Because again, stuff works for everybody else and just not for me. So the worst part about it was because of the autism, I can't lie to myself. I can't pretend that better equals fixed. Can't pretend that better equals fixed. And I knew if I could not get myself across that finish line, I was still never going to get what I needed, and I was done suffering. So figure it out, exit, only my 2 options. Fortunately, my mind was too stubborn to let me die, so here I am.
Yeah, I can relate to that, but this is not about my story. I tell my story all the time. In my former marriage, my wife said to me one time, I have more lives than a cat.
Yeah, I can relate to that one. Yeah.
So the healing process it's a challenge sometimes, but out of it, here we are. Here we are, men. And those are the things we're just discussing. I'm talking to the male audience. They can also apply to females, non-binary, whomever you are, because mental wellness, I'm choosing that word over mental illness, because we are basically human beings, in my mind, on the process of a healing journey. From the time we leave the womb, we're still healing from something. So mental and the care we get determines how well we heal and grow. So mental wellness instead. So it can apply across the spectrum to everyone.
I agree.
But specifically, though, we are going to dive more into the challenges of what we face as men, though, because from your story, I know there's others out here. But anyway, that's enough of me talking. Ryan does have a book out, though, entitled Winner Peace in my southern accent, how to end winter conflict and make success inevitable. You can check that out. The links are there for his website and all that cool stuff. play this by the book in the sense
Well,
of being free flowing in what we're doing.
yeah, well, I'll tell you, like I said, I figured out a lot of things along the way. Everything helps, nothing really fixes you. And what we really don't talk about very often is like how these tools work and kind of what the
Mm-hmm.
limitations are, kind of left and right limits, like where you can
Mm-hmm.
start, where you can end up. And so, quite frankly, we end up getting to a point where we're just kind of spinning our wheels, right? You get to that 20-yard line, you're just spinning your wheels, diminishing returns, you're just not making any more progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I wanted to do was put out the next piece of the puzzle from my perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things that I learned along the way is we do not have a single set of beliefs. We actually have two because we're working at the
Mm-hmm.
world through two different perspectives all the time. We're looking at the forest as well as the trees. Our
Mm-hmm.
functional mind is looking at patterns over time. Individual events
Mm-hmm.
matter, it's patterns over time. So it's got a completely different set of understandings about who you are and how the world works from that 30,000 foot view. And if we don't deal with those directly, then they keep playing. I'm not good enough as a forest level view. Right. So if you don't deal with that, it just keeps popping up, which is why I end up playing whack-a-mole all the time. Fix a bunch of stuff, still not good enough. Okay, great. Grab the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I wanted to add that piece of the puzzle, kind of get people a better idea of like what's happening deeper in their mind, give people a better way to kind of deal with their emotions. For me, one of the biggest shifts I do for my people and the clients that I work with is change emotions from pain into questions.
Hmm. Say it again.
Change emotions from pain into questions. Because here's the thing: when emotions are pain, you got to avoid them. It's triggering that survival part of your mind, right? That's what makes you
Mm-hmm.
want it. And if you're in that place where you've been in some real negative spaces, your mind basically has to protect you from yourself. It's got to shape your
Mm-hmm.
life to minimize that emotional pain. Well, it's really
Wow.
hard to get life that way, right? But if we can change them from pain into questions, something really interesting happens. Number one, they
Mm-hmm.
don't trigger that survival part of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if emotions are not
So
pain,
how do you
go ahead.
suggest we go back changing? I mean, we again some of the strategies. How,
Mhm.
what way do we go about changing some of that?
Well,
Just in
part of
that
it
one
is
thing.
some awareness, but like fundamentally, that's why I use hypnosis. Hypnosis has been used for pain control in terms of physical pain basically since the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kate Middleton, wife of Prince William of England, used hypnosis for pain control for all three of her kids.
Mm-hmm.
Access the best medical treatment in the world and changed, used hypnosis. One of my mentors had a client with really bad back pain. As a truck driver,
Mm-hmm.
so it was really impacting his ability to work. So they changed that sensation of pain from pain to heat. So over the course of his day, his back would get warmer and warmer. So he knew it was time to take a break and take care of himself, but it wasn't a distressing sensation because it wasn't pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can do that with physical pain, why can't we do it without emotional pain? Nobody says it can't, so we do, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not you can do that on your own without that kind of tool, I'm not so sure. But even if you're just looking at things from a different perspective of, okay, this is my mind asking me a question. It is saying, I am facing this kind of challenge in the world and I need your help to figure it out.
But
We talk about it
suppose
every day. Yeah, go for it.
when that self-talk part kicks in, I'm a firm
Mhm.
believer in the self-talk aspect of it, and
Mhm.
you start questioning yourself in those areas, um, but the answers you're receiving
Mhm.
make you more uncomfortable.
Yes, but that doesn't mean they're wrong.
Okay.
Again, you're looking at things from two different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can say, I'm successful now, but if you've been unsuccessful for the previous 40 years and your mind is looking at your entire life,
Mm-hmm.
how does it
Mm.
come out on balance, right? And again, it's creating these beliefs about who you are when you're young, when you're really young, right? Up until
Mm-hmm.
about 4, 5, 6 years old, using a very simple view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets locked behind a wall. Your mind saw a pattern of some kind, you don't know what it is, said, this means I'm not good enough. And it's moving through the world as if that's true. And it's got a mountain of evidence to confirm that
Mm-hmm.
throughout your life. So until you understand what that is and how it came to be, you can't prove it wrong because you don't know why it's right.
And
But
so is that
here's the thing. Go
go
ahead.
ahead? You go ahead.
Well, so here's the thing. If you want to go from point A to point B, you got to start at point A, right? Which means you have to be honest about what point A is. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling, if you're sitting there having that self-talk and this stuff comes up and it's really negative, you don't like it, fair enough. You don't have to. But if you accept it to be true, because it is true on that part of you, for that part of you, then you can start figuring things out. Because you only have to allow it to be true long enough to do something about it. Once you know where point A is, you can start walking the heck away from it to point B.
Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of sometimes even baby steps,
Oh yeah.
in a sense. I had a conversation earlier on a different topic
Mhm.
that I'm really interested in, have been interested in, which is my Black history, African American history in this
Mhm.
country. And what triggered the conversation, those are very limited conversation, was a young person talking about they just give us holidays, she said.
Yeah.
And she was laying into it an aspect of Memorial Day.
Mhm.
And I gave her a brief history of the origin of Memorial Day in our culture.
Mhm.
And then I brought to her attention, she's like, I didn't know. I brought to her attention, I think, what you may call leveling it out, even though I'm a lot older than she is.
Mhm.
I brought it back to, I did not start really learning about my own history until my 40s. When I
Okay.
came to start learning about my history in my 40s, I started seeing life different,
Mhm.
going back and forward. Uh, but I accepted everything I've been taught and programmed in up to that
Yep.
point,
Yep.
even to the valuing of myself in some areas
Yep.
in my personal home life. Uh, the self-esteem thing they call it nowadays.
Yeah.
So, but like you going back to what you said, you got to start at point A. So, with regards to my history, not only family history but communal history, it started in my
Mhm.
40s.
Yep.
So that was just kind of bringing it in, but
Yeah.
also started in my 40s, late 30s or 40s, that journey to mental wellness. So they kind of, looking at hindsight, they kind of collided because a
Oh yeah.
piece of me wasn't right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's really the big sign. Is like you're sitting here. It's like I've done all this work and I should be a certain place and I ain't. My life
Hmm.
should look a certain way and it don't. Like something ain't right. And oftentimes we have no idea what that is when we get started.
Hmm.
Right. When I was started on this whole journey when I was 45, it's like, look, this is just not working. I can't get what I need. I have no idea why.
Mm,
I'm going to go to war until I figure stuff out. I don't care what it takes. Right.
mm.
Did my
I'm,
first psychedelic retreat in
mhm,
2021 and did some MDMA and some psilocybin. And the end of the second day, I'm just up there kind of hanging out, kind of reflecting
mhm,
on things going, man, I feel amazing. I
mhm,
am so looking forward to creating all this stuff. I can't wait. This is going to be amazing. And it's like, wait a second. This is the first time in my life I've actually felt that way.
mm.
This is the first time in my life where I actually believe that life is worth living, which means up until that point, I didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a big,
But
I
you
said,
lived a lot of life before that, though, not to realize you
I
had
know, I know, didn't know,
the
didn't know.
people you knew, the encounters, your experiences, the jobs you
Yeah.
did,
And I
everything.
did some cool stuff.
And,
Yes. And
and,
that's
and you
doing
didn't,
it.
yeah, you
And I
just,
didn't even want to be
you
alive,
live,
man. Didn't even know it.
yeah, you lived out some of the stuff based on what I've shared so far and what I've learned about you. Some of that
Yeah.
cool, part of my cool shit that people
Yeah.
was watching TV.
Yeah.
And
But here's the
here it
thing.
is, a big
That was
mask on it the
me.
whole time.
Yeah. That was me taking what came my way because I wasn't going
Wow.
to get what I needed. So I took what I could.
Mm,
Right.
mm.
It's only been recently in the past couple of years that I actually started building my life intentionally. And I'm still trying to figure out how to want things because if you ain't going to get it, why bother wanting stuff?
Well,
That's actually a new concept for me.
for
You
me,
know?
and thinking about this, doing the podcast in this form, uh, I'm really being transparent to a lot of folks that didn't,
Hmm.
that thought they'd known me for a while. It's kind of scary in a way, but it's also therapeutic. Uh, you did going back, you did all of that so-called cool stuff, and then for me myself, I'm looking back like life was pretty damn good, but it was never great, and it was
Yeah.
never great because whenever you got close to being great, I would do something to sabotage the greatness.
Yes. And I can tell you why that happens. All right. In my book, I talk about two traps. All right. If you have
Mhm,
this idea, if we have this, grew up in a situation, a lot of negative emotion, a lot of just stuff doesn't work. You get to a point where it's like, look, I don't have any control of the world around me. The only thing I've got control over is me. So I've got to be the
mhm,
problem because that's the only thing I can fix.
mhm,
And all this negative emotion gets to the point where it's like, okay, it rises to a threat of, point where it's a physical threat. Right? It's a threat to your
mhm,
life. Quite frankly, you went out. So now your mind has to protect you from yourself, right? From there on out, because it can't take that risk. So what it does is it basically shapes your life to minimize emotional pain. Two different traps we get into. Okay. The first one is what I call the cage. Life is good. Life is fine. Roof over your head, bills are paid, lights are on, food's on the table. But everything that you really want, everything that really makes life worth living is on the outside of the cage, your soft limits. You're here, you should be here, and you know it because you're boxed in by that pain. And it's not that you're afraid of success. It's not really the truth. What you're afraid of, or what that part of your mind is afraid of, is if you take that shot, go for what you want, and you miss, proves all that negative stuff about you right in a very big way. And down the hole you go. Maybe this time you don't get out. It's too dangerous, literally too dangerous for it to allow you to take that shot. So until you do things to make it safe, it's kind of off limits. And it's doing it for your best good, to keep you alive, to keep you safe. For me, there's no such thing as self-sabotage. That doesn't happen. Your mind is always working to help you out, live the best life it feels is possible for you to live, while keeping you safe, keeping you alive, and everything else. So if you're not getting what you want, you're getting what you need at a deeper level, because you are not just consciousness. There's a whole lot more to you. You got to give that part of it its due. It has needs due. And keeping you alive is job number one. Even if it means keeping you alive from yourself.
From yourself. Sharing someone about my title of my podcast. I stayed with it because of when a client of mine in my part-time gig said it was kind of cool name many years ago. But it took a different meaning when my eldest son had his first knee surgery. And he's lived out a lot of my life. Both of my sons have, to the point of when the divorce happened, things happened. And one thing I say often, I share with my client the other day, was that my son said to me, tell your story, number one. And I'm like, I was conditioned to fail at most things. So he said, that's your story, preconditioned to fail. And so when I came across the avenue of podcasting, my very first episode was preconditioned to fail. And I think I rambled on for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I felt some power in it. And then the other pivotal point that ties in with what you were saying, and we're sharing stories. And I do this for that reason: story content versus ABCD question and Q&A. My wife and I have been knowing each other for about 4 years now. Through Facebook dating, of all places. And the time she came into my life, I was at the cusp of pursuing a job I had before, or staying at the job I had. And my supervisor got wind that I was trying to leave. And some kind of conversation got to the point where I told him that no matter what happens, I win, which I don't put up here. I'm gonna start tagging it in my thing. I said, no matter what happens, I win. I said that, and he kind of looked at me crazy. But I broke it down like this. I said, if I don't get the job, I have this job. If I get the job, I have the job I want. No matter what happens, I win. I don't lose anything. There's no loss in this for me, because I work, because I know I have this job, because I'm not being bragging, but I'm one of the best workers in this particular thing we're doing. So I have this job. So no matter what happens, I win slogan. Not taking away from what your slogan. And even with that, I still struggle many days because of that thing you talked about, that preconditioning to go back to I've got good, and winning is safe. But why not win?
Good enough is good enough.
As my platinum thinking wife, she loves diamonds too, but I'm throwing her out there on the bus today a lot. I think she'll probably catch some of this somewhere going with her, is that she loves her jewelry, but she wants a platinum lifestyle, and her mind is more valuable. So my days when I'm challenged by some of the stuff you're talking about, she reminds me. Actually, I got my old T-shirt on today. No matter what, I wins. Original T-shirt I did. But it goes back to that first thing you talked about. Now, even though we can be winning and we can be moving along and living out as we live out, what do you suggest for navigating those moments, and they do come up, when you know you've gotten to great, but something still drag you back into that rabbit hole? What do you suggest on that?
Well, again, you just have to be honest with what's going on, right? If you're winning and something's dragging you back, pay attention. There's a reason your mind wants you to just take a few steps back, and maybe taking a few steps back is the best possible thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one question I tell people that they should ask, like
Mm-hmm.
anytime things don't make sense, just ask yourself, what am I missing?
Uh-oh.
What am I missing? If you were right about everything, things would be working different. You'd be getting what you want. Things would be fine. And it ain't. Therefore, you're wrong about something. It could be anything. So you got to kind of step back and take a look at everything. But the thing is, when your mind is doing this stuff for you, it has a reason. It's trying to help you. It's trying to solve a problem. Step back. What am I missing? Let it show you. And whatever comes up, doesn't matter what it is, just assume for the
That's the
moment that
scary
it's
part.
true.
Whatever it is.
Oh, I know. I know. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can get anything you want in life as long as you're willing to pay the price. You want a Lamborghini, couple $100,000, it's yours,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when it comes to living fully, being your authentic self in every possible way, being the absolute best version of yourself, the price you have to pay is often pain. Are you willing to face the truth about what you think you are? Are you willing to face those parts of yourself you don't like? Are you willing to allow those things to be true? You're trying to prove wrong your entire life. Because if you proved them wrong, they wouldn't be popping up. Therefore, they're still true in some way, shape, or form. The amount of growth and the amount of success you're able to have is directly proportional to the amount of truth you're willing to face and own. Now, me.
Say that again.
The amount of success you have in life is directly proportional to the amount of truth you're willing to face and own. I didn't have a choice.
Somebody, let me see. Let me click over one split second and bring it up on Facebook Live. Somebody need to save that one. Somebody needs. This still showing me yesterday's thing. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Let me see what kind of comments I got going over here. Because somebody, somebody need to save that comment, or if you don't mind typing it in. Yeah, if you don't mind, well, you can type it in if you want to. What you just said, that's up to you. I'm still learning this technology here, how to navigate this thing. But it's going to be saved regardless, because this is going to be audio as well as video download.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing is, for whatever, it doesn't matter if you think it's true or not. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you think it's true or not, because part of you is running it as if it is, right? So part of you believes it and is acting as if it is. Fine. Fair enough. Say, okay, you think you're right. Fair enough. I'm going to assume for the moment you're right. Show me what I'm missing that makes you right and me wrong, right? If you think about that forest and trees perspective, think about that fact that part of you, that deep part of you that's got all these conclusions about yourself from when you're young, doesn't change those conclusions because it keeps on seeing evidence as right. Well, maybe that's the problem. It's stuck with some old conclusions, right? Because when you're young, you don't have a lot of sophistication in terms of how you're understanding the world, right? Had a client who's getting abused most of his life, right? You're a kid, you think it's your fault. Trying to figure out what the heck did I do? What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? Just make this stop. That's the only move you've got, right? You've got to play the cards you're dealt, no matter how much they suck. And the only thing you've got any control over is you. So that's the thing you're trying to fix. It's not really possible when you're that young to say, this is happening because he's all messed up, taking it out on anybody around him. Going to happen regardless of what I do and don't do. That's not an option for you to think. Now, as an adult, we can understand that. But because it created that belief way back then and it don't change and it's seen all kind of evidence throughout your life, it hasn't been updated yet.
It hasn't been updated and uploaded. So on the other side of things, wow, I'm loving the way today I'm really getting a full experience of StreamYard, y'all. Because I'm seeing like everything we say pop up here on the screen. It's awesome. But on the other side of the spectrum, though, we've talked a lot about us as individuals.
Yep.
For those who have significant others, partners, husbands, wives, kids, other people in their direct purview, that's experiencing this from a different angle.
Yeah.
What might you say to some of these people? Or how should we self-check ourselves to help explain? Because it's hard to explain when you're feeling like shit and you're looking healthy. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, think about it this way. You cannot hide who you truly are in a relationship. That comes out whether you want it to or not after a while.
Exactly.
Right? You can put up that mask for a bit, but it don't last very long. Right? So being in a relationship is probably the single best way to figure out who you really are.
That's another good, powerful thing. Wow.
Right? Yeah, it's a mirror you cannot avoid.
Being in a relationship is probably one of the best ways to figure out who you are. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you're around this person all the time. They know you really well, and they're going to figure out ways to push your buttons, whether they really want to or not.
Mm,
Right. And the reason you get triggered is there's a button to get pushed. It's
mm,
resonating some way. It's true in some way. You're going to figure out what's wrong really fast
mm.
if you're willing to own it.
Own it.
Right. Oh, hitting this button, man. Oof. Fair enough.
So you talked a lot about ownership of who you are, your emotions,
Yes.
your mental. And to go back to as I said in the beginning, we as men, the ones I've encountered and known
Hmm.
in my 40s, well, I'm 62 now, so the majority of my adult life,
Hmm.
we take ownership of everything except with emotion and mental. The
Oh, yeah.
spiritual, we can play that off every given day because faith and beliefs and type, anyone can choose or choose not to have them, but the emotion
Yep.
and the emotional and the mental we carry regardless.
Yeah. That's
And
very easy to understand why. The rest of the stuff we got control over. The rest of the stuff we can act on.
mm,
Those emotions, everything else come up whether we want them to or not. And we can't seem to stop it. We don't have a handle on it. There's nothing we can do about it to make it go away.
suppose you get to the point, those individuals who, uh, I'll just be honest, like myself, you
Hmm?
develop these defense mechanisms where you can shut down and get cold
Yes.
and stoic.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
hard sometimes. It's easier to laugh and engage with people that you know you're not going to be around all the time than those
Yeah.
in your direct inner circle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what that is, I mean, fundamentally, that's avoidance, right? It's like this stuff is too painful to deal with. I can't hear it anymore. I need you to shut up and leave me alone because this is too much. Because again, every emotion you feel is your mind asking you for a question to help you solve a problem. You're saying, I can't solve that problem for you, and you can't tell me about it. It's too painful. So
Uh-huh.
your life gets smaller because
Mm.
there's places your mind doesn't know how to navigate. You can't help but figure it out. You don't get to go there.
So
And what often happens?
could that
Yeah.
also
What
be
do you think?
like the and I've had coworkers and friends who they live for it's their right to do so.
Mhm.
Disclaimer out there. They live for football season. They live for basketball
Mhm.
season because they are able to get away from their wives and their children
Yeah.
in those
Yeah.
time periods.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about that. Like you built this family. You
Hmm.
married that woman for a reason. You've been together for years. Why do you want to get away? Well, something's triggering you. Something's a mess, right? Which means that whole thing is dysfunctional.
Hmm. Because I mean, in those environments, I've heard from. I'm not a sports geek, but I'm
Right.
wondering. I wondered often, why do you want that time to pull away from the people when the remainder of you get to be with them?
No,
It's never added up to me. Even though I
how
have my
about this?
own journey and my own story, that's
Let me
like
give you
I.
let me give you some perspective. All right.
Mhm,
So we don't really allow ourselves to have things that we don't feel like we deserve.
mhm,
Right. So if you don't feel like you deserve a lot, you're not going to let yourself have a lot. But at the same time, a lot of us have a very powerful need for connection, a lot of very powerful need for relationship. So I have to have a relationship, not good enough to have a healthy one. So I take who I think I can get. And a lot of us deal with a lot of heavy stuff when we're young, like a lot of anger, a lot of fighting in my household, right?
mhm,
So my last girlfriend gave me some really powerful things, but she had a temper, right? I don't know
mm.
how to deal with that. I've been doing that most of my life. So that's a
Yeah.
price I'm willing to pay. That's a price I'm willing to pay to get this powerful thing I need. So often we find ourselves in a situation where I'm not good enough to have a healthy person because I know I'm broken anyway, so they're not going to accept me. Can't hide it in a relationship. So I pick someone I think I can deal with a price I'm willing to pay, take what I can get. But fundamentally, we're settling, and that dysfunction and everything else kind of shows up every time. It's like, okay, I have to have this, can't get out. So let me go ahead and take as much space as I can.
Mm. Okay, now I'm gonna flip that over to places of employment, career choices, job choices.
Yeah.
Um, One of the scariest things I did, and thankfully my wife was
Mhm.
supportive of it, and it's been challenging in a lot of ways. I'm
Mhm.
not going to here on this episode because it's for us.
Yep.
Um, but in exiting the job, people I respected, people I got along with, I could not tell them what I was doing because every single day I saw them settling, as I called it.
Yeah.
If you dare mention something beyond, well, I'm too old to make that move. I can't do this because of that. And I even worked with one
Mhm.
gentleman who was a former surgical tech. Okay. And I'm like, why don't you just go back to working in the hospital setting? They pay him. Well, they don't. He had an excuse for every reason for not doing so.
Yeah.
To be out here
Well,
in the hot sun every day driving a truck,
yeah.
working for a
Yeah.
municipality for less money. And I respected him as an individual, but it still perplexes me, and though we have freedom of choice, how
Mhm.
you can have this skill set that somewhere along the way you relegated yourself down to, I
Yeah.
cannot because of, and I'm getting ready to take a bold leap and go
Yep.
totally self-employed
Yep.
and not knowing what's going to happen day to day. And podcasting right now doesn't pay, but it
Yep.
will eventually pay in some capacity, along with other things.
Yeah.
The point
Well,
I'm
think
making
about
in
this.
bringing up his story and my story is this: you talked about relationships and as individuals
Mhm.
go. What can we say to those who are at that precipice, the want to leap, but they've have found themselves in that cycle of the individual I talked about?
Yeah.
Because
Well, again, it
it's
comes
still a
down
relationship,
to,
just different kind.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure. If you don't let yourself have things you don't deserve, and you don't think you deserve to have that big shot, you don't take it. If you think, if your mind thinks the price of failure is too high, it's not going to let you take that shot. The situation I was in was like I was freaking starving. I can't get what I need in the world. I've been
Mm,
starving for 45 years. I cannot do that any longer.
mhm,
I do not have a choice. I don't have a choice. I got to do this. There's nothing, I can't. I have got to go down this road. It does not matter how much it sucks. It does not matter how much I have to face. I don't have a choice. So,
mm,
what often happens is we take that leap, even though it's incredibly scary and painful and dangerous, because where we're at, we cannot live with anymore. Cannot tolerate. It's like I cannot live this life. And that's the beautiful thing is once you make that decision of I'm going to make this happen, decision's made.
mhm,
Right? There's this beautiful thing I was thinking about the other day where talking about if you're willing to pay the price, anything's yours, right? If you think about the samurai back in the day, right, they were
mhm,
fearless. They were fierce, man, just feared, right? An interesting thing about them is before they even put on their armor and rode out to battle, they wrote their obituary. They wrote their death poem.
mhm.
And what they're
I've heard
saying
of that.
is, right? What they're saying is, whatever I'm out there to do, whatever objective we're after, I am willing to lay down my life to get it.
Mhm,
My life, that is worth my life. I'm willing to pay that price. And because you've already decided to pay that price, anything less than that is good. You don't even think about it, right? If you got going out to buy a new car, you got $20,000, car's 20 grand, you just write the check. 17
mhm,
grand, you just write the check. It's 22, got that space. Maybe, right?
mm,
25 off the table. So if I've decided I'm going to do whatever's necessary, doesn't matter how much it hurts,
mm,
right? But you have to get to a point where you have to move in some way, shape, or form. The point, if the place you're at is too painful, you have to move. And that's part of what you can do is focus on, all right, I have to make the moment I'm in, the place I'm in,
mhm.
painful. I got to make this painful enough to move
To move.
because you got to move away from pain. Going there is painful. So if I make this painful, where I'm at painful, I got to get off of here. And at least now I'm moving.
Mhm.
Not the best tool, but it works.
But it
And if that's what you
works.
need to get you moving, use it.
Yeah,
Right?
that
If it
that's
works,
kind of
use it.
use it, and that's kind of like I guess uh, when like I said when I did my job change, and I had read story after story, people just up and walked away.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's scary. We have to make that move. What I guess what you're saying in a sense is what is the greater pain? The pain of
Yes.
staying or the pain of leaving?
Yes.
The pain associated with the daily go in the job, office conversation that annoys the out of you.
Yeah.
That pain that wants that you like, oh, I love what I do, but I got to listen to this all day, engage,
Yes.
or the pain of this of I'm over here, new place,
Yep.
new people,
Mhm.
strangers that don't really know me. I'm telling my story to countless people,
Yep.
and they're telling their stories to me because we've taken that leap,
Yep.
and we don't know where the bottom's at. I think Steve
Yeah.
Harvey or someone else has said it once, told the story of the bird being
Hmm.
thrown out the nest, and that's
Hmm.
the only way to really learn how to fly. And here
Hmm.
we are today, destigmatizing the mental wellness
Yeah.
because no matter what happens in my life, no matter what happens in anybody's life, my personal opinion is that it's got to start here with knowledge and insight.
Yeah.
And what you're giving us today is some knowledge. insights and perspectives.
Mhm.
And some people are at that precipice of being wanting to make that job change, that relationship change,
Yeah.
or what, or maybe just changing how they take care of whatever change. There's a change that's holding them back
Yeah.
from living their fullest life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody struggles that for quite a while. Like I said, I just recently got to the point where I could like want something and I got, okay, now I got to figure out what I want and I got to figure out how to create that because I've never done that.
Yeah,
Right.
not,
And think about
not,
this, jumping off the cliff is scary, right? But for me, it's like, I got to figure this thing out or die trying. So I'm jumping off that cliff because either I'm going to fly or I'm going to hit the ground. Either one is just is an acceptable solution. But you have a wife who's supportive. And that's the beautiful thing about relationships.
mhm,
Talking about how like messy they are, but you've got someone who loves you, who supports you,
mhm,
who wants you to win.
mhm,
And when you got somebody to fill your cup and power your battery, well, now you got a lot more juice to do that things. You have a safety net because you're not doing it on your own,
mhm.
right? And that's powerful.
And then the other side of it, I have two. I call my little people. I don't see them often. That I, I want to be able to do some things for them differently. But getting off back off
Yeah,
that part of it, this is not about that part. It's not about a grandpa moment or husband
yeah,
moment. Going back to tying in what you just said, talked about,
yeah.
taking me back to when I've been very blessed to have one of my dream jobs. One of my dream jobs was to be a firefighter.
Love it.
I did it part voluntary. I did it paid. Didn't make the cut. Tried it again later as a volunteer. Then tried it. Then was able to do it again as a paid firefighter. And then this time though, one of the first things, reality hit me that when I go to work that day, I may not go home that night.
Yeah.
And the reality hit me during when I participated in my only rescue of a little child on one of my first house fires. And I'm tying this in with what you're saying, not taking away from what you're saying. I try to make sure everyone knows this is your time. This time my
Yeah.
audience, but to tie in the stories. And when my captain found that kid behind that bed and put him in my arms, told me to take him outside, that was a moment I realized that life and death was connected to my
Oh, yeah.
job. And and the house fire occurred in the same neighborhood I lived in. And and before it made the local paper and everything, that walk away thing had kicked in. And I walked away from all of that. So
Oh,
only
yeah.
ones that got to be in the paper were the driver and the captain, and not the firefighter who took the child out. Because I pulled away and walked away. I was has
Yeah.
been. I signed my term of resignation and it was over.
Yeah.
But it will live forever in my memory that something triggered that failure factor that caused me to walk away after helping someone
But
have
that's
a
not
second chance
failure.
in life. You
That
call it
ain't
failure?
failure.
Okay.
No, it's not. No, it's not failure at all. That ain't it. That ain't it. Again, there's no such thing as self sabotage. You are not conditioned to fail. That is not what's happening and never
Right.
has.
Okay. Okay.
When you were young, playing small was the safest, best possible thing for you to do.
Hmm.
That was your survival strategy and worked, right?
Hmm.
What happened when that moment is you realized the cost to the people you love, the potential cost to the people you love,
Hmm.
and you couldn't put them through that.
Because it wasn't long there after that that we received the call, and thankfully we were the second engine company in,
Mm.
and the first one had already knocked down the fire to discover in the basement of the home there was live rounds of ammunition and explosives in the basement. And that would we would have been we'd have been the second line of attack.
Yeah, wow, wow.
So
And like
yeah, so
same
yeah,
thing, same thing kind of, and same thing kind of worked for me too. Like,
those memories there are there. I mean,
oh
but
yeah,
it
well
goes
think
back
about
to that
this.
mental health and mental wellness thing.
100%. And like I was working intelligence back in DC, as a
Mhm,
contractor for 3-letter agencies. I was working counterterrorism for a long time, right?
mhm,
And you get exposed to some of the worst stuff out there.
mm,
And I will never forget a certain moment I saw a certain thing. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
mm,
Can't. It is too heavy. It is the weight I'm carrying, the cost it has on the people in my life. I said, I can't do this anymore.
mm,
I lasted maybe 2-3 more months and I was out. I started doing the counter proliferation stuff,
mhm,
trying to keep you from getting weapons of mass destruction. Like
mhm,
that's heavy. That's big stuff, but it ain't nearly as heavy as what you have to deal with. There
mhm.
comes a point where you just have to realize that, man, I can't keep doing this. The cost is too high, not to
Right.
just to myself, but the people that I love in my life.
And that cost goes back to not only the traumas or the good things in life and the traumatizing things in life that we live through on a
Yeah.
daily basis. It, I think, adds to that because
Yeah.
when the job is over, you still got to be you, whatever,
Yep.
whoever you is.
Yeah. And think about this, man. Like I'd go into the office, have to deal with a bunch of horrible stuff, and then go out for happy hour with my friends afterwards. How was your day? It
Wow,
was fine.
fine.
What'd you do?
My
It's
my
okay. It was
word is
good stuff.
okay. I'll tell my wife quickly. My word is okay.
Yeah.
When she says something ain't right, I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah. But you talk about not being able to talk about your stuff like that. I literally can't because it's all classified.
Right,
And there's no way in hell they'd be able to understand it.
right.
It's
Yours
like, what are we
was at
supposed
a
to do
whole
then?
different level. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's even
And
more
that's,
mental to carry.
yeah, exactly. And and
I remember a captain I had one time, and I don't know what one thing about doing this, memories come up to tie in with the stories. I don't rehearse none of this, so I tell people, you get what you get.
yeah,
uh, I remember him telling me the majority of people who stay in emergency services, if their mate or partner or wife or husband is not in some area of emergency services, they will end up divorced
it
and married to
almost.
someone in the field because they're the only ones going to understand what you do. I'm
Yes.
like, it works that way? He was like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
His name was Captain Tobin. I remember his name to this day. He was
Hmm.
like, yeah, majority of us, you go through at least one divorce, and then hopefully you get married to someone in your area. Because if you don't, no one can comprehend even
Yeah.
what you're dealing with every day.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not wrong, man. Like that kind of thing, emergency services, military, kind of the intel stuff, like you're dealing with things that 99.9% of humanity will never have to deal with and cannot possibly comprehend. You can't possibly comprehend rolling up on a car wreck, seeing a
Mm-mm,
kid mangled, right? Like,
mm-mm,
what are you supposed like? That is not something you're supposed to see as a man, as a human,
mm-mm,
period.
mm-mm,
And if that's your day to day, man, like you're a different beast. You
mm-hmm,
have to be.
mm-hmm,
So you need somebody who can actually match you on that level in some way, shape, or form,
mm-hmm.
right?
I think that's kind of like even in this when I did talk about Karen quite a bit more than usual today because she found herself in my words today, my mouth
Yeah.
today. But that creative side, because this is Tuesday, her and her bestie have a show that I knocked for a long time because I'm like, y'all doing this thing differently than I'm accustomed to doing it, and I didn't really understand
Hmm.
it. They have a live show tonight every Tuesday, but once I finally caved in and went on their show, I started seeing the benefit of StreamYard, doing my
Yeah.
podcast different, bringing people together different, and sharing stories differently.
Yeah.
But and I bring that up
Man.
because the creative side, like you said, comes in. And it could be anyone in your life. It don't have to be a wife, husband. It could be anyone. But
Well, I'll tell you,
but truly
what.
destigmatizing mental wellness it's connected to that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's that's exactly why I want to get married again. Right. There's no way I was gonna be able to do that stuff right.
Yeah.
When I'm bipolar and autistic and don't know it, like there's no way in hell a relationship's gonna work. But
Mm-mm.
fundamentally, I went on a couple of days with a young lady earlier this year, and like, man, that woman had wicked intuition, and she could just see in my blind spot say, "This is wrong, this is wrong." This is like, motherfucker. Knew her for a couple of weeks, and she was like, "Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it." It's like, son of a bitch, right? Because as a man, like we're very like front and back in our brain. We're like freaking making things happen. We're charging and so forth and so on. So we don't have that wider vision. And a woman's like, "This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong." And when you've got a woman in your life who's committed to building something with you to walk that path in the same direction, it's like, man, that is a force multiplier you can't imagine, because it opens up the whole strategic like view. It lets you see the bigger picture so you can make better decisions and move better, right? But if you're talking about destigmatizing mental health, man, like you got
That
this whole
ties
idea
back
that
to
guys are supposed to be,
yeah, that
yeah,
goes back
look
to
at it,
that nuts and bolts of this thing because all the great people in the world
yeah,
around you can't help you if you know how to get rid of that stigma.
yeah, yeah, and it's like if you really want to get into like destigmatizing mental health, if this is really something you want to look at, there's a gentleman by the name of Sean Ryan, Shawn Ryan. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's
It'll be
got a
up on the screen.
podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a podcast. He's a former Navy SEAL,
I'm
former
sorry.
CIA paramilitary operator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a show, and he's talking about talking to all these veterans, high end like special ops guys, right? Like guys
Mm-hmm.
doing high end stuff, like complete and total badasses. And just about every single person he brings on the show, like they've just been absolutely destroyed mentally and emotionally in some way, shape, or form. Right? Talking about having to go down and do like heavy psychedelic stuff, like guys talking about committing suicide, guys talking about like destroying their lives after some stuff. Like these guys are the baddest of the baddest, the most powerful, the most toughest. These are guys you will never touch. And they deal with the heaviest stuff. They have seen the worst. And when they're sitting there talking about that burden to them, to their families, and what it took, and finally sitting down and say, I can't do this anymore. I have to get the help. If men that are that powerful, that strong, that tough, that resilient break, just like the rest of us, who the hell are we to say that we don't deserve that? Who the hell are we to say that we don't get to do that work?
Wow. I don't have nothing. I have nothing to say on that.
Yeah.
Because the average one of us would never
walk
that path.
Who the hell are we to say that we don't just like, if that kind of person can own it and deal with it, why can't we?
Why can't we?
Why can't we?
Why can't we?
If that man who is that tough, that strong, is willing to take that step because he knows it's necessary, because he knows a man can only take so much, why can't we? Like, don't we deserve the same thing they do?
And if they're in pursuit of that thing that they feel they're missing, who are we to stop being in pursuit of ours?
Yes.
Because they've lived to tell the story.
Yeah. And think about the cost their people in their lives had to pay until they were finally able to get there.
Wow.
Think about how much better their life would have been if they'd just taken that step a little bit sooner, if they'd been able to own a little bit sooner, if they hadn't run from it so much. That's a big problem, is we don't let ourselves feel. We don't pretend, we pretend like, oh, I don't have to feel. Men are supposed to be tough. We're not supposed to feel. It's like bullshit. You do whether you really want to or not, and you know it. And the only reason you're numb is because you're either shutting things down or you're medicating yourself with drugs or alcohol or whatever. And the gym 7 hours a day, make the bad feelings go away, turn the emotional pain into physical pain. That works for a little while until it don't. Just be honest with yourself. Just own it. Just truth is truth.
Okay,
true is true. It don't matter what it is. Just own it.
Just own it. I'm real finicky about going past like an hour.
Sure.
I don't mind sharing that part with myself. Because I think my longest episode ever was like an hour and a half audio.
No problem. We can start wrapping things up.
No, but I'm throwing it out there because that still is one of my most popular episodes of those who go back in my audio version and scroll back about 2 years, because this was about an interview with a man who in California who owned the emotional pain of loss.
Yeah.
He met his girlfriend, stage 4 cancer.
Oof.
And the woman who was dying taught him how to live.
Yeah.
And they never got married. He went, Larry Iglio, I can't pronounce his last. He wrote a whole love story book about how she taught him how to live. And he ended up becoming a physical fitness trainer and all of that. But she was, and in the podcast, he talked about how she's a ballroom dancer and she danced until she couldn't dance anymore. And we got lost. He found that thing in her. And you just triggered me to remember that thing about these powerful men, these people who've seen and done things, you yourself. Who are we is the question you ask. Who are we?
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts on this topic, or whatever you want to say in closing out?
Well, man, I could talk about this stuff forever. Like I said,
I could too. We're two of those people who could like hour after hour.
Oh, I know. So what I would simply say is, like I said, if you're a man, you're supposed to be doing the hard things. Hardest thing is to look yourself in the mirror. Hardest thing is to look at yourself in the mirror and own your flaws. But if you're not accountable as a man, like what kind of man are you? Right? If you're not accountable for your decisions, for your actions, if you're not accountable for the things you're avoiding, who are you as a man?
Wow.
Get the truth, whatever truth is. Doesn't have to be true long. You just got to allow it to be true long enough to do something about it. But if you never allow it to be true long enough to do something about it, it stays true and it continues to mess up your life. Start asking what you're missing.
So ask
if things were working, you're right. If things ain't working, you're wrong. What are you missing?
What are you missing?
And look at my emotions as questions. They're trying to tell you something. Your mind is trying to help you live the most amazing life you can. If you let it tell you what the problems are, you can fix them. The entire reason I wrote my book is I've done pretty much everything I
I got to
can
get
to
your book.
fix yourself.
I got to get your
Yeah.
book down. I got to get your book. It's like,
It's
wow.
designed, it basically walks you through everything I do, talks about how to change emotions, talks about how to look at yourself in a very different way, talks about, fundamentally what we believe about who we are and how the world works determines what we need to do to survive and thrive.
Mhm.
Once we understand what those things are, we can change them and live a different life.
Mhm.
Right. And the book is all about understanding that. They're going to be deeper, doing some reframes to start moving you in the right direction.
Mhm.
Talks about how to change your emotional state, like in terms of looking at like what those things are in terms of questions, so you can play with them, so you can work with your mind, so you guys can be on the same team for once instead of fighting each other.
Mhm.
Right. The place I want my people to get to, the place I take my people to get to, is fundamentally a core set of beliefs that says there's nothing wrong with me and there never was. There's nothing healed that never was. I am good enough as I am to deserve whatever I choose. I don't have to prove it to anybody, not even myself, because it's just a choice.
Just a choice. Wow. Okay. On that note, take a deep breath. I said, this has been another episode of Life is About More Than Living, the podcast, YouTube version, and you will catch it on Spotify and all those beautiful places, iHeartRadio, as an audio format. Ryan Christensen has been an amazing guest today. Hope I said his name correctly.
Good enough for me.
Okay, and men folk, as I say, call y'all, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Because at the end of every tunnel, as I've said numerous times, or at least as I learned in firefighting, there wasn't a tunnel, that you can find some light even in a dark room if you look hard enough.
Yep.
That dark room is sometimes up here.
Yep.
And if nothing else, the information in reaching out to Ryan will be there, all the replay forms. We share it with him so he can do whatever he wants to with it. Um, I'm only going to bring people on this podcast, my listeners or viewers, that are able to help you, if you choose to navigate wherever you need to navigate from to. Or else I'll be lying to the name of my show. Life is about more than living. You can't live a fuller life if you ain't trying to find the tools to live it. I'm not trying to take away from nothing he said in conclusion. Replay it, hear what this man had to say, dive in, reach out to him. I would definitely get his book because I've learned quite a few things from people like him through other books that I can't even get on the show yet, but I might get him on the show
Yep.
eventually. And you have a great week, sir. At some point, I would love to get you back on another topic similar to what you're talking
Love
about.
to.
And yeah, because life is about more than living. Destigmatizing mental wellness. Thank you all for catching us. Catch us on the replay. Like, share, support, however you want to support this podcast. Um, definitely subscribe on Instagram, Facebook, somewhere. Definitely go to Ryan's website and check him out. Appreciate y'all. Concluding this live stream, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, have a great week.